Hey, out there, legal warriors, beware these common police techniques to try to get you to talk. It's easy to say don't talk to police, but so many people end up talking to the police because of these techniques. So if you're interested in the area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 25 years. I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. Now, my law firm has been around a long time, so we deal with lots and lots of situations where the police are wanting to talk to our clients or to our potential clients, or even worse, that the person who's calling us has said, hey, I just ended up being interviewed by these police and I think I made a big mistake. And so the bottom line is I have a lot of information about what techniques the police will use to try to get that unrepresented person to talk to them and build a case against themselves. And I was a prosecutor for 7 years as well, so I worked hand in hand with police back in the day, right, 32 to 25 years ago. And so hopefully I know a little bit about what their tricks are. So I think the number one thing they rely on is to rely on our wish to be liked, right? The police will sound very nice most of the time if they're calling you on the phone, if it's something unexpected. Hey, Bill, why don't you just come down to the office? No big deal here. So we can talk about what happened last week or 10 years ago or 15 years ago, that type of thing. And they sound really friendly. And we think, of course, as people who might, be pro-law enforcement, we've never dealt with law enforcement in the past, and we sort of have this positive view of them. We want to be liked by them, right? We don't want to let down this law enforcement officer is just doing his job or her job. They're so friendly to us on the phone. And, saying no to somebody is very hard, right? Especially if you happen to work in the service industry, right? You're a nurse or anything like that. We're used to saying yes to people. We want to help people. We want to help clear it up with this officer. And they're not going to like us so much if we tell them no. And that's a really strong drive for people to be accepted by others, especially by those in authority. Because if those in authority do not like us, right, aren't they going to be mad if I don't talk to them? And we can get to, aren't they going to be suspicious if we don't talk to them, that too? But I'm just talking about the general human nature to be liked. And so it's tough to say no. And they will say all types of things to try to play upon that desire for us to be liked and accepted by others. And it's important to realize that they're doing a job. They're not there to help you. They're not there to be your friends. So you're going to want to talk to an attorney before you decide if you're just going to go waltz into the station, no big deal. I have nothing to fear from police. I'm innocent, right? They're not talking to you because they think you're innocent, right? That's not what they're doing. I think the second technique that we see officers use is one that might be more obvious. They play on our fears, right? And the like part has something to do with, but they play on our fears of how we're going to be perceived by them and what their power is, right? They play on our fears that, hey, if I don't go cooperate with this officer, they're just going to arrest me, right? Don't I need my side of the story out? They play on our fears that if we don't talk to them, that the prosecutor will only see one side of things, and therefore if I don't come in and talk to them, it's just a one-sided case. They play on our fears, again, also if we disappoint them in any way, if we tell them no, they're going to think of us worse, they're more likely to arrest us, they're more likely to cause us problems. And so that fear is a big deal. Officers will say, look, if you don't talk to me, I got to refer it to the prosecutor anyway, or if you don't talk to me, I'm going to refer it to the prosecutor. If you don't talk to me, I'm just going to take their side as true. So you need to talk to me, right? And if you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. Now, they don't necessarily, sometimes they do say bad things are going to happen to you, but it's the fears that we have of being misunderstood, the fears that we have of being arrested, the fears that we have of being convicted of something we didn't do, or fears about what we might have done and it now is coming to light, and we have this sort of need to confess, right? If we have done something wrong, that's something you need to fight back against. There's a reason why it's almost the same playbook every time for an officer. It starts out really friendly, and then if it doesn't work so well, then they start to get less friendly. So it goes from, likable to fearful, right? And there's a pattern that happens. I don't generally start on the fear side, because you can go from fear to like, right? But you can go from like to fear as they ratchet up the pressure. And depending on the sophistication of the officer, some are going to be better than others. And the good ones we got to really beware of. And oftentimes an attorney can give that officer a call, and especially an ex-prosecutor, if you can get a hold of one of them, can give the officer a call and sort of speak their language and try to do a diagnosis or a triage of what's really going on. Is there a way that we can be benefited by telling our side of the story to the police, or is this just their minds made up and it's some type of trick where they're going to try to stick us, okay? And people in the comments will say, all the armchair lawyers, never talk to the police, never talk to the police. And that's true if you're taking a law school exam. But we're dealing in the real world where if we're really careful and really planned and we know enough, occasionally in the right case, we can actually change the outcome of a case by having an educated, well-prepared, experienced discussion with police to try to set the record straight, but never on your own, and still in most cases not. But it's not as simple as never talk to the police, because you don't want lazy attorneys. You don't want lazy thinking. This is our life. And while most of the time that's the correct answer, it's not correct 100% of the time. I think the third technique is more advanced, but it's one we probably see often on YouTube if you watch interrogation channels, guilty as charged, things like that. You'll see sort of minimization. You'll see that if you are foolish enough to go speak to law enforcement on your own to keep you talking, which is in the area of get you to talk, it's like, hey, we know you're not a monster. This probably happened for another reason, right? You're not a monster. Tell us why it happened. Tell us why you possess this stuff you shouldn't possess, right? Did it just happen to show up on your computer? Or, tell us why, you went ahead and you keyed their car. There must have been a good reason. You're not a monster. Tell us your side of why you did this. And so they're trying to make it seem like if you justify why you did something, therefore it's, not illegal. And so they're saying, for example, if you're in possession of images you shouldn't possess, sometimes an officer might say something like, we know you're not really interested in that. Or maybe they say, you are interested in that. That's why you have it. And they can go the other direction. You say, no, I only have it because it was, I'm not really into that type of thing. It just came across, my computer or my phone or something like that. And by trying to go one direction, they get you to admit to something you otherwise wouldn't admit to. So that's more maximization than minimization. But minimizing is something they try to do. They try to say, hey, the behavior's not so bad. We can understand why. So just tell us about it. And then you all of a sudden admit to all of these elements of the crime. So that's a way they get to keep you talking. So don't fall for it. The more they're talking to you, right, the more they're trying to manipulate you to get you to say things that builds their case. And so certainly you should not be talking to police without an attorney. Or if you do choose to talk to police without an attorney, it should be after consulting an attorney where you're in control and you're the one who's trying to, get something on paper that's going to help you. The only reasons we would ever talk to the police is, one, to influence their belief about what happened, and that needs to be reasoned and careful after consultation with an attorney. Or if we can't influence their belief, we need to get a version in the report that otherwise wouldn't be there, that the prosecutor could look at and say, oh, dang, there are two sides here. Maybe this is too much trouble for me to charge, right? And, until about 2020, I think our firm mainly lived by never talk to police motto. And then we had a little more time. Something happened called COVID, right? There's less cases. And we started to think, hey, all these cases where people are accused of real serious crimes, we notice if you don't talk at all, there's one side there. You're more likely maybe to get charged. So on the right cases, right, we started to carefully try to get our version of a story out. And we noticed on those cases where we did it right and we were careful, charges weren't getting filed. And so it's something that evolves over time. And if I wanted to be the safest possible attorney and not ever have any chance of any blame, right, I can play it safe, right? I can play that prevent defense and prevent mistakes. But if we watch football, prevent defense does what? It prevents wins. If we can be aggressive and careful and smart, in the right case, get a version out that helps us, and we believe the officer has an open mind, or we believe the prosecutor will have an open mind, then sometimes it can actually help. Again, not the exact topic here, but it all relates together. And I think the fourth thing that they play on sort of relates to the minimization, but more broadly, they play on our lack of knowledge, right, of what's a crime, right? Sometimes we might call the police in a case. Let's say you're a person who called the police and you're mad because, your partner slapped you, and the officer's trying to figure out what to do, and you just all of a sudden say, hey, well, I was mad, so I took the phone and I spiked it on the ground. But it was okay that I did that because I got slapped. Well, the officer might get you to admit that I understand. Yeah, you're probably mad because this person slapped you, right? So when I get mad, I would do that too. I would spike the phone on the ground. Is that what you did? Oh yeah, that's what I did. You understand me. I spiked the phone on the ground. Well, the officer played on your lack of knowledge in that case that breaking that property is a crime, and there's no justification for breaking it. It's not self-defense when you retaliate by taking someone's phone and breaking it on the ground. So now they have an easy crime to arrest for. You just admitted to a crime because they played upon your lack of knowledge in that situation. So many people don't realize a push can be an assault. And breaking your own property if you're married is malicious mischief, right? And so this is why we have to not be talking to police without attorneys, without some some attorney input, because all these techniques they will use to get you to think that it's going to benefit you to talking to them. And I think the final one I'll throw in is it's sort of different category. It's lie detector tests, right? Polygraphs. We've got separate videos on that. Well, polygraph's not admissible in court. Polygraph is a technique for an officer to have you come in, and they will have you take the test, and no matter what it says, in my opinion, they're going to say, oh, you showed deception on this one, tell me the truth. And whether or not you're telling the truth or not, there's so much pressure you're under, you'll start to say things that aren't so to please the polygrapher, right? To please law enforcement, because you've already succumbed to all their other tricks, right? You're either afraid of them, or you're trying to please them, or you've been tricked by their minimization, and now here you are when they're really ratcheting up the pressure. So we don't agree to polygraphs. It's never going to help us. I've never seen a single case with a law enforcement polygraph where it came back and somehow it helped the client, right? They'll have every excuse in the book. And the only time we ever have to really deal with polygraphs is if we're on probation with community corrections officers. They can ask for those things, and they can try to use those things to do things to us, but avoid it at all costs, and don't fall for all these techniques of the police. We have no obligation to talk to the police, and you want to speak to an attorney to find out what you need to do. And if the attorney doesn't consider what's your best option, they just say, no, never, never, never. That's a good law school exam question, but if they consider it and then say, no, it wouldn't help you, then trust that, because that's someone at least thought about what you should do. So I hope you found that useful. If so, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. More importantly, if you had a criminal matter in Washington State, feel free to reach out to our firm. If we get on board, listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.